Okay, I am back with another weekly update. First of all, thank you to our clients who watched, who shared, who gave us feedback. Certainly, for those of you who shared, please feel free to continue to do that. In fact, if you've got friends or colleagues or people who you think find this useful, let us know, and we're happy to add them to the distribution. Whatever we can do to help. In fact, I mean, it's nice to know that we're able to add a little value. So until you tell us to stop, we'll keep recording these, we'll keep sending them out, and hopefully that helps. This week you will notice a couple of differences. First difference would be Meredith. Say hi, Meredith.
Hello.
Introduce yourself. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Meredith. I am one of the controllers here at Upsourced Accounting. I work with many of you I don't work with. For those that I don't work with, I've been a controller for about 8 months now. And before that, I was an auditor in public accounting.
So Meredith and I are going to tag team, giving you the sort of latest updates and what we know. There's a lot of interesting stuff to share with you. You'll also notice maybe a couple of additional changes, things that maybe a little more professional or official looking. We're all sheltered in here and isolating, and I've decided that I've picked up video editing as a fun hobby that I'd like to try. So given that all of our clients are probably better at this than I am, I hope that you have some patience and look the other way. We're all in this together. Anyways, let's get into it. So Meredith, let's do just like a quick news roundup. I'll start. So Senate announced last night approval of the latest $2 trillion stimulus package that's been bapping around. Hasn't yet been voted on in the House. So everything we talked about is still sort of what we believe, but nothing that we know. But Meredith and I have been pouring through the bill, haven't we, Meredith?
Fun stuff.
Fun times, yeah. So we've got some interesting things to share there. Before we go, though, let's at least sort of step back and summarize, because there's been a lot of things floating around. In fact, there's been 3 total stimulus packages passed and or offered. The first one was the first emergency funding bill. That was small, $8 billion. It was for virus prevention, prep, and response. Didn't really have anything for small businesses, so we haven't talked about it a lot here. The second one, Families First Coronavirus Response Act. That's the one we talked about last week. That's what provides for the emergency paid leave and the expanded FMLA support. And so now the third one, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, mouthful, right? Or the CARES Act. That's the most recent $2 trillion deal, host of goodies in it. We'll get into all that in a minute. But let me just kind of come back to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act with some new information. I talked about it a little bit last week, but some new things that we now know. First is that the effective date on this bill is April 2nd. So while that doesn't mean you shouldn't offer paid leave to employees who need it prior to that, it appears that you won't be eligible for a credit for anything provided prior to April 2nd. The other thing is a lot of confusion around like who qualifies for what and what should I offer. So we try to make it really simple by boiling it down to 3 categories. Category 1 is an employee leaving to take care of themselves. That employee receives 2 weeks at 100% pay, $5,000 max. Second category is an employee who leaves to take care of someone else with symptoms or who is isolating. That employee receives 2 weeks at 2/3 pay, max of $2,000. Third category, employee leaves to take care of a child whose school or daycare has been closed. That employee receives up to 12 weeks at 2/3 pay, max of $12,000. We've created a guide. We'll circulate it around, but hopefully that helps. Okay, let's move on to the CARES Act. This is a big one. Meredith, why don't I hit the debt section, and then you can cover anything else in the bill that small businesses would find interesting or useful. So as part of this bill, Congress added a second loan program. So if you remember, that second stimulus package included expanded SBA lending for disaster relief. And if you remember from last video, we said, many of our clients likely won't qualify given there's an exclusion for anybody who has access or has outside credit. This particular loan program does not include that exclusion. So as it stands right now, we think this could benefit nearly every one of our clients, which is big because it's a really favorable loan. So here's how it works. Keep in mind, this is how it reads so far. We have changed how we've written this a couple of times. It's fluid, okay? So sitting here on Friday, March 27th, this is what we know. First question is who's eligible. Right now, we believe nearly everyone who is everyone who is in business on 3/1 is eligible. We're not aware of a means test of any kind. How much can you borrow? It looks like you can borrow up to 2.5 times monthly payroll and certain debt obligations up to a max of 10 million. That max loan amount is a bit fluid though. How does it get repaid? So this is obviously very favorable. Looks like it'll be a 10-year standard amortizing loan with a payment deferral of up to 1 year, minimum 6 months. So it'll be a while before you have to pay. On top of that, there's a loan forgiveness provision. So you are able to forgive eligible payroll, rent, utility, etc. costs over a covered period. That covered period is the 8-week period, I believe, after the loan is originated. So read that as totally free money. Free money. Now, one note, that forgiveness is reduced by a quotient, a proportion of your staff that has been reduced when you look at this year versus last year. So we'd be happy to walk you through that, but just be aware if you've laid employees off or if your team has declined year over year, you may have a small reduction in the amount of forgiveness. And then finally, who can lend? Looks like nearly every lender. So the original disaster relief loan had to be applied through SBA. Sounds like the authority is being delegated to traditional lenders, and you should be able to get this through your bank. So we'll give you some more information as we learn them, but so far pretty exciting.
Yes.
Anything else in this bill that's worth talking about? Anything else useful for? That's obviously the big one.
Yeah. The other items in here, payroll tax. So we talked about last week that there is a payroll tax benefit that would be deferred over a period of time, that you would get your money back via payroll tax. So they decided that that's going to take too long. So what they're doing now is you can defer that.
Yeah, so I think, I think, tell me if this sounds right. I know we're literally reading the bill as we're telling you this, but I think what and what you're talking about, and tell me if this is right. I think what you're talking about is the fact that for the Families First bill, we had the emergency paid leave and the expanded FMLA that I just talked about. Originally, you would get that money as a refund against your payroll tax paid as a credit. Theoretically, that could take quarters and quarters to get back. I think this bill gives you some kind of advance funding, so you get it now versus over a series of quarters. Is that right?
Yes, that sounds right. It's still
Yeah.
There's not a
It's still
ton
super
of
new.
guidance on this. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how that's actually going to work, but I think that's certainly worth watching. And then I don't know if you saw this. They're in addition to the getting your money back on your emergency paid leave faster, I think there's just an overarching payroll tax deferral if you wanted to take advantage of it. So totally separate, the idea of the amount of payroll tax you pay from now until the end of the year, you could defer for, I think, a 2-year period, Meredith. Is that right?
Half is due at the end of 21 and the other half is due at the end of 22.
So call it an interest-free loan from the federal government on the amount of your payroll tax, which, for $100,000 a month could be $50,000, $60,000 depending. So that could be real.
Yeah. And for our clients that are on Gusto for payroll, they're having a lot of there's links and stuff that you guys can hit on there, and it'll help explain how to.
Well, that is a hell of a segue because the next thing I want to talk about is you've completely nailed it. Gusto has done an amazing job with providing content for, frankly, just generically coronavirus support, but obviously anything that touches payroll, benefits, whatever, they've been entirely on top of. So what I would tell you is, for those of you that are using Gusto, if you haven't seen it yet, when you log into your dashboard, you'll see, and I'll show it up here. You'll see on the left side a link to COVID-19 resource. If you click on that, there's a ton of details, both on things like the applicability of the Families First Coronavirus Act, as well as just a whole host of other things. We know that information on taking advantage of the CARES Act that we just discussed, particularly those last two pieces about the payroll deferral and the advance money on your paid leave or your expanded FMLA credit, That will be coming shortly. We've been talking to the folks directly at Gusto, kind of in real time, and providing feedback on what our clients need. So I have inside info that it is coming soon. It's not out there yet. One other thing that you'll see in there is that there's a link, and we'll put this in the email, to state-specific resources. So it's basically a Google Doc with every single state and what they've already released in the way of incentives or regulations or support. A couple of things that are pretty interesting. First of all, Ohio, our home state, has announced a deferral on all health insurance premiums for the next 60 days. So again, another interest-free loan on your health insurance premiums to give some businesses some breathing room while they continue to provide health care. In the state of New York, we've heard some murmurs about maybe a moratorium on rent, but so far all we've seen is one on evictions. So at a minimum, whether you're paying your rent or not, the state of New York has said we're not seeing any eviction cases in court for now. And obviously, we're aware of a whole slew, New York included, of states that are offering loan programs. So go to the link. It'll give you everything there is. Any clients of ours, if you've got any interesting programs in your specific state that you think would be helpful to share with the group, please let us know. The last thing I'll tell you on the topic of resources would be creditors, banks. So we talked last week about Chase being an early data point on offering assistance to its borrowers for payment deferrals or whatever. In the subsequent week, nearly every bank has come out with some announcement or program. There's actually a link put out by CNBC that lists every bank and what they've publicly announced. But what I'll tell you is pretty much everybody is jumping in. So B of A has publicly stated they're going to defer funds and refund late fees. BBVA has said basically the same, offer loan and line of credit deferrals and extensions upon request. Wells Fargo and PNC have both done the same thing. Now, I'll say for those four, no details about to what degree they'll offer this assistance, just sort of vaguely reach out and we'll help you. So if you haven't already, reach out and they'll help you. A couple of banks in our home state, Fifth Third and Huntington, have actually been more explicit. Fifth Third and Huntington both actually suggesting they're having a 90-day payment deferral program, no late fees, and a host of other loan mod programs. We know Chase, who hasn't publicly said how long, is offering 90 days if you ask. So we expect that to be kind of generally the standard duration. But all that to say, again, if you've not had luck with your loan officer, there's so much competitive pressure to offer these deferrals. I'd expect that you'd get some soon.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's our news roundup. I think what we want to spend a little bit of time on now is talking about what we're hearing, seeing from clients, and some of the conversations that we're having. Meredith, you're on the front lines here working with our clients as a controller every day. So why don't you tell us what are we hearing, what are we seeing, what are we saying?
Yeah, cool. So the first thing I want to talk about is, thank you for everyone that filled out the survey that we sent out earlier this week. I don't know, the weeks are kind of all blending together at this point. So we are going to be doing this on a weekly basis to just kind of get a pulse on where everyone's at and have a centralized data point that we can share with you guys. And that way, you know what your peers are feeling. So I want to talk about the survey results. The first question was, have you seen a closing pipeline, business pipeline? So a huge percentage, so 37% said no change in their pipeline. 44% said a minor reduction. Part of this could be that we are in the agency realm a lagging indicator. So our clients are feeling it, and so we won't be feeling this, for another, 4 to 6 weeks. But also, I think it says something that we haven't all just stopped, these 2 weeks of very uncertainty. It hasn't just all come to a screeching halt. So we'll keep monitoring this and continue to ask that question just to get an idea on what the pipeline looks like. I know what the clients I've talked to, they're trying to find, innovative ways to keep business going, and, people that were doing conferences, in person, they're taking it online and finding creative ways to still keep chugging along.
Keep going. So, yep, that's right.
Yeah. Like
and you're right, and I'll say just one note, if you're not familiar with Drew McClellan or the Agency Management Institute, good stuff. He's got a podcast. I'll share just one quick anecdote. He talked about an agency owner in Hong Kong who actually services the travel industry. and was talking to them, given there were a couple of months, granted differences between the U.S. and Hong Kong, but he shared they're a couple of months ahead of us either way, and talked about what their experience was as a business, as an agency. And I'd say what I took away from that would be one, as we expected, the first 2 weeks were just panic. Everybody had paused. Everybody said the world is ending and we're not sure what to do, and so it was just a paralyzing of action. But after about 2.5 weeks, people got back to the business of getting to business. And while there were certainly slowdowns, it wasn't just sort of an abrupt, nobody is doing anything. We sort of adjusted to the new normal, and we've sort of figured a way to work it out. I think we're probably going to start to see that if we haven't already. But to your point, Meredith, you're absolutely right. In the agency world, we're a lagging indicator. So if we haven't experienced slowdowns yet, that doesn't necessarily mean that we won't. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
All right. What was the next question?
The next question, how likely is your customer/prospects to be willing to sign new work in the next 30 to 60 days? So 19% said very receptive, and then 81% said somewhat perceptive. So, people are still out there looking to sign work and bring on new business. The final question, are there segments or services that are experiencing increased demand? And 63% said yes. So what we're seeing here with our clients, people that are in the e-commerce space, there's an increased demand. People are sitting at home still wanting to buy things. Virtual events, as I mentioned earlier, those are still happening. And then anybody related to like the COVID, like marketing or messaging, that space is ramping up as well. So,
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, go ahead. I mean, not to cut you off, Meredith. I was just going to say it's a great reminder that, again, while we're seeing obvious slowdowns in industries that are impacted, that we're creative industry, right? So people being really creative and saying, look, as demand for some things are declining, demand for other things is increasing. We're seeing some of our clients saying, yeah, no, we've got brand new pipeline to address some emerging opportunities.
Yeah.
That's cool. So yeah, how's that translating into the conversations with the clients themselves? So you're hearing all that stuff. What are we telling them we should be doing now?
Yeah, so a lot of the conversations, at least with my clients and with the other controller clients as well, it's let's take a look at cash flow. Let's look for, let's get a plan together just so we know where we're at to give some peace of mind. So like, what does the next 6-8 weeks look like in terms of cash flow? And then also, I think one important thing that we need to be looking at too is, are our top top 2 clients, are they giving us any bad vibes that like, who we're doing business with, they're not going to sign new deals. As we start to see those, that's going to be like an indicator of, okay, maybe this lag is catching up to us. But right now we're not seeing that yet. So the biggest thing, let's model out, let's plan for the future. Go ahead.
I love that idea, by the way, Meredith. I mean, and I think that mirrors David Baker, who many of you are probably familiar with, has a similar sort of look at your top 4 clients, and if 2 of them are sort of making you feel a little queasy, that might be an early indicator. I think that's really good. The other thing I'll say again, and this is many of our clients are feeling pretty okay, right? It's things are changing, but mostly okay. I would say that's probably more cause for us to sit down and come up with a plan A, B, C.
Mm-hmm.
If this happens, then we do this. If this happens, then we do that. And if this happens, then we do that. We do it now because when those things really do happen, there's all sorts of emotions and worries and concerns running wild. And if we just have a blueprint that says, nope, we already decided and it's just this easy, it's going to make handling uncertainty much easier. And hopefully we put that in the desk drawer and we never look at it again.
Right.
But it's there if we need it.
The other thing that we've all been having our clients do is reach out to your current banks, see, as Ryan said earlier, like, what can they do to help you out during this time? Like, everyone's feeling it. So see if they can extend those loan payments that are coming due, if they can, push it out 60, 90 days. And then we're starting to see a little bit of success with this, but reach out to your landlords and see, I mean, you're not in this space right now. Ask them if either delay payment. I've seen one of our clients, they just waived April rent. So that was really amazing. There is some language in lease agreements that can get you out of the obligations, well-written leases.
Often don't have it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of chatter in this space about force majeure, and I think it's, for anybody who's heard that, it's important to know what your agreement says. But as Meredith is
It's
alluding,
gonna be a better approach if you just reach out to them and say, hey,
of course,
here's where we're at. Can you help us out? So start with
everybody's there.
that. But if you want us to take a look, we'll help you look at your lease agreement. We're not
See what
attorneys.
kind of yes, right. But we can look and see what contractually you're required to. But more than likely, the force majeure is not going to get you out of it if it's a well-written lease.
Yeah. So I think those are the big ones for now that
Okay.
we're encouraging everyone to look at.
Good. Okay. Great. So obviously, again, if you haven't had those conversations with your controllers, you will soon be having those conversations. That gives you some window into where we want to go, and again, certainly let us know if you have any questions or any concerns you want us to address sort of proactively. All right, so that's a lot of information, pretty heavy, pretty heavy episode. The one thing we did want to do is finish with something maybe a little bit more fun. So I know that, while we're not reading House and Senate proposed bills, we're also trying to figure out how do we keep ourselves occupied while we're sheltering in. And one thing that we were always talking about is what are you watching? What are you binging? What should I, and so we decided to take a little straw poll within the Upsourced office to see what are the most popular things people are binging and share that with our clients. So here, this is what we're recommending.
Hey everybody! I think we're gonna have some fun, talk about some hard stuff, laugh a little bit, and hopefully learn something from each other. How many of you know that I'm super introverted? It's handy when I'm traveling because I'll be sitting next to someone and they'll say, so what do you do? And if I'm not in the mood to chat, I'll be like, I study shame, what do you do? They're just like, nah.
It's not every day that a zookeeper went to prison for murder for hire.
There are more captive tigers in the U.S. than there are in the wild throughout the world.
Animal people are nuts, man. They're all crazy. I'm sure y'all got a story to tell.
I've spent my entire life in pursuit of flavor. I've traveled the world to explore the things that define good cooking.
Let me get some forks.
No matter where I go, the same elements make food delicious.
You're laughing and crying.
Laughing and crying. That's pretty much the story of my life.
Salt, fat, acid, and heat. Just 4 basic elements can make or break a dish.
Okay. Well, so that's everything we've got this week. Thank you again so much for investing your time in listening to this. Again, thanks for the feedback. Please, again, give us more feedback. Keep sending us questions. One thing I'll mention, a couple of clients have mentioned they would love to get a happy hour with our clients to kind of commiserate and share. That sounds interesting to you, let us know. But know that we're going to keep coming up with interesting ideas to try to add value to you. So again, thank you.
Thank
Meredith,
you guys. If you guys have questions, feel free to reach out. Let me know. Let me know how I can help.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye.